Hey, what's going on? Merry Christmas. Today is December 25th, 2013. That is day 32 of 92 of my 3-month bulk. By the way, I'm Andy. I'm the executive coach at Real Body Improvement. I'm just spending 3 months going through a bulking cycle, taking everybody along with me, kind of showing you how progress normally goes if you've never done it, maybe learning a thing or two along the way, even if you're an experienced bulker or workout fiend, whatever you are. Maybe you can learn one or two things that I do that you can apply to what you do. I'm up at 207 pounds. That's up around 12 pounds overall in 1 month. Again, in case you kind of missed it, I've been sick for the last 2 weeks. Today's the first day I felt like 100%, I'd say, or at least 99.9% back. So my overall progression is a little bit it's not as good as what I'd like it to be. If you look at what I'm lifting right now, I'm going to throw that up there. On squat, I'm doing 245 by 5, which is up about 20 pounds. Bench press is 205 by 8, which is up only about 10 pounds. And my deadlifts are right at 205, which is basically where I started. The reason for that, again, is getting sick. I basically skipped a week of working out. It wasn't going to be helpful to do so. And I haven't been able to really push it. And now that I'm back, I'm actually able to push it. But before then, it was just being sick, so I just basically stagnated. From here on out, things should go up pretty dramatically every week as long as I'm not getting sick. Getting my sleep and hitting the gym every single time, I'll be totally fine. And if I'm not going up from there, then something's really wrong. Now, each video, I take a little time out to discuss a different aspect of my bulk. But today I want to talk about something really interesting, and it's very important to a lot of people who do compound lifts, and specifically the squat. When you do the low bar squat, one of the biggest problems everyone has is something called butt wink. And I'm going to go a little bit of how I avoid that as someone with very tight hamstrings who has a lot of trouble keeping their hips aligned so they don't do a little bit of butt wink, if you know what I'm talking about, and kind of tell you how I avoid it. So let's just get right into that. All right, so what is this term called butt wink? Well, it basically refers to when you're performing a low bar squat. So the bar is right about here, not your typical here that many people in the gym happen to practice, but a low bar squat where you're trying to go below parallel, where the hips are going below, just a little bit below where your knees are. That's called going below depth. And anyhow, when you're performing the low bar squat, when you're going below parallel, one of the things that has to happen in order for you to perform it safely and most efficiently is you're supposed to keep your lower lumbar spine in contraction, which means basically, and I'll show you a picture right here, it basically means that your lower back is in this state. And what butt wink refers to is the fact that if this is your butt right here, it basically goes like this. So your lower spine extends, it doesn't keep rigid, and that causes a lot of problems. The main reason you want to avoid this, of course, is injury. Now, the reason that you can get injured is because you have, even at light weights, if you put 135 pounds in your back, which is just one plate on each side, you have potential for injury because the bar is set right here. That is putting compression onto your spine. If you know anything about human anatomy, your spine is made up of vertebra. Each vertebra is kind of like, I should go like that. Your vertebra is like this, right? So the ability for you to flex is all because you have a gel-like sac called a disc or intervertebral disc in between each one of those vertebrae. And it helps for you to bend safely. So that way I can do this and I don't have any pain, right? And it allows me to be able to do it. It allows our species to be able to do crazy things like this, that. And obviously other animals have it too, but point being is that when you have a loaded bar in your back and you have that compression, the compression is really pushing down putting a lot of pressure here. Of course, when you have muscle back there, you're able to hold it erect and you're not going to have any problems because it's going to be pretty rigid and in line. Now what happens is with that compression, that weight that's compressing down on top of it, you come down and you go below parallel, all of a sudden all that pressure on your spine starts to go like this. And those little gel-like sacs, they get a lot of pressure put on them when they start to bend like this because there's a lot of weight. Now what happens is sometimes the gel gets pushed out. Why is this bad? Because that gel can then push on your nerves, and that's what's called either a bulging disc or even worse, which is called a herniated disc, where it actually leaves the sac and starts pressing on a whole bunch of nerves. And this can cause pain down your legs. It just leads to a lot of trouble. I had a bulging disc, not a herniated disc, and I had enough problems to tell you that you don't want to go through that. And learning how to safely squat below parallel is good for so many things. Good for posture, for strength, for even if you want to get ripped in the gym. So learning how to do it is of prime importance, and getting rid of the butt wink is of prime importance. Now I'm just going to show you really quick. This is a picture of what butt wink looks like. And I'm going to give a shout out to my sister because she did a great job of kind of showing what that looks like. As you can see at the bottom there, it's just a quick dip. It's a quick dip of the hips. And that's basically what it is. It's a loosening of your lower lumbar spine. You're losing that contraction there that needs to happen. Now, why does this happen? It happens because the person who's performing the lift is either not cognizant of what their lower back is doing, which is perfectly normal because most people don't really think about their lower back at all. It never comes up in almost anything. But when you have to do a movement like a squat, all of a sudden things change. Now again, I'll show you that video. As you get lower there's a tension there fighting between your back muscles and your hamstring muscles. And your hamstring, as you get real low, wants to pull that lower spine downwards. Again, you're always fighting that. So if you're not thinking about it actively, you're automatically going to do it. But even once you've learned how to do it, and once you know how to keep that contraction, it's still very hard to keep it as you go low. So one of the problems of many people is they think it's, oh, my hamstrings are not flexible enough. My hamstrings. So they end up stretching their hamstrings, but that doesn't always cure the problem. I have very tight hamstrings personally. I have super tight hamstrings. I have the tightest hamstrings out of anyone I know. I can't touch my toes. No way. I've always been like that since I've been little. The point being though is that is not really that good of an excuse because there are plenty of people with tight hamstrings, myself included, who can squat below parallel with little to no problems. One of the biggest reasons why you are probably butt winking at the bottom, why your spine is extending, is because your knees are not out far enough. Basically what happens is if your knees are not out, the way your hips are structured anatomically, you're impinging on the bones, on the soft tissue in your hips. And basically what that means is your legs are getting in the way of you getting down below parallel. So the best cure for butt wink is to get your knees out. Get them out as far as you possibly can, within reason. I don't think you want to go like this. That wouldn't be good. But you have to get your knees out over your toes at the very least. Angled at whatever they're angled at, they need to be out. If you have too narrow of a stance, this is going to be a problem. And if your stance is too wide, you also have the same problem. So you have to have the good shoulder width stance, have your knees out over your toes, which feels very weird to everyone who's squatted before because squats are usually taught with feet pointed forward and very narrow. So again, I'll show you really quick. This is a picture of me squatting, not deadlifting, squatting. And one of the things is I've overcome my butt winking because I had it really bad. Again, I have inflexible hamstrings, to say the very least. But one of the cures for me has always been getting my legs out and then just focusing as best I can on keeping my chest up. Now, why does keeping your chest up have anything to do with what happens with your lower lumbar spine? Keeping your chest up, and this is what a chest up means, okay? Chest up is not this. This is what everyone seems to think that having a chest up is. It simply means more of this. You kind of rotate your... It's almost like if you had boobs, you're showing off your boobs, right? So how would you do that? Would you go back like this? No, you wouldn't. So you have the bar on your back like this. It's a simple flex, like a pushing out of your chest, like this. And you keep that as you go down. Now the reason why this is beneficial, and it helped me out a lot, is because as I get down to really close to parallel, the only thing I think about is keep my chest tight. And what that does is it sends a signal. Keeping the vertebrae in line up top just kind of sends a signal down all the way to the bottom. I still have to be conscious and cognizant of what my hips are doing. I should say my lower lumbar spine is doing. My holding as tight as I can and keeping my knees out. But if my chest begins to loosen, if I go from this position and I start to loosen it up, even just a little bit, you can feel the tension in your back kind of go out a little bit, and then that travels all the way down, almost exponentially down to where your lower lumbar spine starts to curve. So honestly, those are my two recommendations. Keeping your knees out, focusing on having your chest up. But obviously the biggest part is you just have to practice this. Practice. If you don't have any idea what it's like to keep your lower lumbar spine in extension, In other words, to keep it contracted, and you're always having an extension on the squat, the best thing you do is practice. I say the best thing you can do besides those two pieces of advice is just you have to practice it. However you're going to do it, you have to practice it a lot. You have to practice at lower weights, going down below parallel, keeping your legs out, keeping your chest up, and also keeping that contraction in your back. It's not normal for a lot of people to do it, so you have to practice it until it is just muscle memory. Now, I would say one thing before I do end. Butt wink is definitely something you want to avoid. However, what some people get wrapped up in is working and being obsessive compulsive about their form to the point where they actually aren't increasing their weight, they aren't improving at all, so they stay at the same weight, and they use the form, that they're not at good enough form yet to push themselves. Do not let this be an excuse. If you let this be an excuse, you will never increase your weight. You'll always be thinking about your form. You have to eventually just adopt a little bit of confidence, push yourself a little bit, and get going. Don't worry about this too much. Make sure that you're doing it well enough. Get a buddy, get a video camera, film yourself. Be very critical. Read everything you possibly can, and try to keep increasing your weights. Do not let butt wink be a reason that you're not growing and getting stronger. If you are wasting a lot of your time. You're being what we call a form Nazi, and you're hurting the possible muscle and strength gains that you could be making, which is the whole reason why you do this.